Hello everyone, this is the Great Pumpkin speaking and welcome to this new army report about Ogre Battle 64. Since the last time we've reached the Gules Hill and I've actually managed to unlock all of the tier 2 classes for our various groups. So let's have a look. We'll start with Cornelius' group as usual, as Magnus is not ready yet. So this group, now all of our archers have been turned into Dianas, which are basically archer units that hit 3 times from the back. And our knights also turned into paladins, which are basically the same thing, which means they hit 3 times in the front row, and we've also managed to get them some pretty cool weapons. The paladin up front is using the Ice Blade, whereas the other one is using the Blessed Blade. Most of our archers are actually using Yoteval, which are holy elemental bows, whereas one of them is using the Bow of Sandstorm, which I got off one of the bosses back in the Sable Lowlands. Really powerful group overall. They've already managed to do some decent damage, and the fact that they hit so much means they don't have so much chance. The group they're up against is actually a pretty powerful one, so that's pretty good. So yeah, that's one cycle. Let's be done with this. I like that group. It really showcases how powerful Dianas can be. Next up is Mary, our resident dragon tamer, who got turned into a dragon master. I've also managed to equip her with a Needle of Light, which is a holy elemental, how can I say, short blade I suppose. And her green dragon have now been turned into Azidakas, which are the venerable dragons of Earth. They'll do a real number on these things, although they're not particularly powerful to begin with. So this earthquake attack, as you'll see, has a chance to bring down the power of attack from the various enemies, which means that it won't be doing nearly as much damage now that this has been done. It also hits in a cross, meaning that the enemies within the middle row as well, both middle rows actually, will receive more damage, whereas the ones on the edge, like those 2 soldiers up front, will actually be hit for less. This is one of the weaknesses of the group, also that the earthquake can affect the flying units, and you'll actually find that the computer is pretty smart about it. They'll try really hard to confront you with it. There's nothing really special about the Dragon Master class, it just improves the efficiency of the dragons themselves by a small amount. But since we have 2 dragons, might as well use a Dragon Master, am I right? Still, you saw we decimated this entire group without much problem. And there isn't much that can stand against 2 Azidakas, unfortunately. So we've got Benedict's group, which consists of 3 enchanters up front, which are basically Doll Masters, but that hits 3 times up front. As well as in the back row, we have a Quetzalcoatl, which is the venerable dragon of wind. Looks pretty cool, kind of like a winged serpent, like the original Quetzalcoatl himself. It used the Radiant Gale attack, which has a chance to paralyze all of the various enemies, which gives a break to our enchanters up front. They've managed to do some pretty interesting damage. The Quetzalcoatl is actually the most powerful dragons of them all, although the Azidakas is stronger in some cases. But that's it, we've been through everything. One of the things that will make that group powerful is when I manage to get elemental dolls, which I'll be able to do in one of the next stages I'm up against. But right now, just the Magnus, the Gallon doll is doing really great on our leader. So there's that. They've almost managed to kill the group in 1 cycle, that's pretty darn cool. Next we have Bento's group. This group has changed a little somewhat, although now instead of having enchantresses and witches, all of them got turned into sirens, which are pretty darn powerful. Our wizards turned into archmages themselves, and I've taken the opportunity to change their spells. So now up front, the sirens will actually attack maybe once or twice using the regular magic, whereas those in the back will actually use area of effect magics, like these that we just saw. Dark Quest is the area of effect spell, and when combined with the fire one, it gives the combo Dark Flame that we saw earlier. Dark Flame actually reduces the power of enemies, which make things a little easier for us. One of the nice things that this group can do is that if you manage to get 2 liches, which is actually possible through a way I'll explain in another video, you can actually be able to do 4 combo magic in one go. It's not nearly as powerful as, for instance, having a Lich with a Draconite book, but this can destroy pretty much anything, honestly. It's really special. So yeah, one of the mistakes I made in making that challenge, but still, powerful group, as you saw. They killed nearly everything. You can also see some of the damage that the Siren do as opposed to a regular one simply because they were witches. They hit pretty darn hard. So next group is Taylor. Taylor is actually our group of, well, our flying group, which used to have an Opinicus and a Voltan in it. Now I've changed all of those Hawkmen and Voltans back into Ravenmen, the evil class of this version. And I've also replaced our Opinicus with the Cockatrice, which can actually petrify enemies in the back row. The strategy with this group is to actually leave the Cockatrice out back to make groups a tiny bit easier, and then move it back up front to let the other units actually, you know, destroy what's left. However, they're not really all that powerful. You saw that they did the Thunder Arrow on the back compared to the Voltan's Wind Shot. Still, this group isn't all that powerful. The plan is to replace them completely in a couple of levels, so that'll be that. Now then, after Taylor's group, it's up to Kasha. We're up against our beginning group, which should give us a fairly good way to gauge the power of this group. This group has changed quite a bit. Our fencers got turned into swordmasters, which are basically fencers that hit 3 times. And our leader actually managed to get an elementally aspected greatsword, which makes him pretty darn powerful. Our cleric also got turned into a priest, which allows him to more efficiently heal everyone in the group. That means there's absolutely very little way that our pumpkinhead can actually die, and our guys up front will manage to do what they do best. Although those archers out back might have a shot at killing that priest. I'm not sure. No, they won't. Unless she crits. Not so bad. Not that great, but it's actually pretty good. Once they get better swords, they'll be pretty much unstoppable. After Kasha, we've got Kate's group. Kate's is basically the polar opposite of Kasha, where she has, of course, the 3 pumpkinheads up front, and we got a Diana and a Siren in there. Basically, the point is for the, how can I say, the Siren to deal as much damage as possible to enemies that weren't beaten by the pumpkinheads, whereas the Diana will just finish up whatever that's left. This is usually more than enough, to be honest. The pumpkinheads are still rather weak if they get focused on. Still, if you're careful, it's not that big a deal. Given how many consumables that there are in this game, this actually isn't much of a problem. They sometimes have trouble with focus though. Boom! Not great, but they did nearly as well as Mary, which is pretty good. At some point I'd like to get her a somewhat better bow, but, you know. She's actually wind aspected, which means that there's actually a wind bow somewhere further into the game, which is pretty good. And now we've got our last group, which was Vaudeville. Vaudeville got his Beast Tamer turned into a Beastmaster, and we've got 2 ninjas that got turned into Ninja Masters out back. We've also have the Goblins up front, which replaced, I think it was a Hellhound or something. No, it was the Hawkman, that's right. Why use the Goblins? Well, Goblins aren't such a great unit, to be honest, and they only hit 2 times, much like the Beastmaster. However, they actually seem a little more profitable than using, for instance, a Cerberus, as they can actually use swords, of which there are many pretty powerful throughout the game, and I don't have a lot of units that can use swords. One of the things I didn't mention about this group is that the Ninja Master can also do area of effects now. So that's actually pretty good on the back. They'll use whichever element the enemy is weakest against. Although, to be honest, Ninja Masters aren't all that great at dealing damage. If you want dedicated damage dealer, you would actually want Archmages or Sirens. They're actually a little more useful up front, hitting for 3 times. But then again, I will need something to replace them with, which I don't have at the moment. Could always put a Cerberus out back, but that's not all that good. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the time being. I'll meet you back for the first level of the Three Moss Mountain, where I'll be doing an entire stage of this game. So stay tuned. This was the Great Pumpkin. You all have a pleasant time now. Bye bye.